Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Suwaid. You think everyone's going to be ready?
So can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Can you hear me okay? I'm just on the train on the way to work, so it might be a little bit inaudible.
If you feel like they won't be able to do it at this time, we can starting next week. I could try and make it later, inshallah ta'ala.
It should be fine, I think. Don't think it should be a problem this time.
Okay, inshallah ta'ala. We'll give everyone a chance to make it in.
Yeah. Are you planning on sticking to this time, or do you want to move it back?
I was trying to stick to my same timing. So our class was usually 10 p.m. my time, so I want to keep it around the same time, inshallah.
And would that be so? That would be an hour from now?
No, that'd be right now. When I say 10 o'clock, because basically when the time changes here, nothing else changes. So, school's still at 7, work is still at 9, but basically everything stays the same. So I was hoping, I usually try to keep in that same time.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got confused because I used to have another class at this time. But this time should be fine.
Inshallah ta'ala.
Any news on that book, Sheikh, that came out by Imam Shafi'i?
I'm sorry, which book?
The Nawadir al-Shafi'iyya.
No, I have not actually gotten a hold of it just as of yet. For the most part, I mean, if we were going to speak about Nawadir realistically, I have a computer full of Nawadir Shafi'iyya, but they're in makhtut form. So, you see, what happens is a lot of times is people find a couple manuscripts and they realize that they're not published and they're like, oh yeah, here you go, here's some rare things. They are rare. They're not necessarily the rarest. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tell you this, for example, a lot of people, most people, even Shafi'i, even preachers and teachers don't have is Hashiyat ibn Hajar al-Haytami on his Tuhfa, his actual Hashiyah. No one even knows that this exists except for very, very few people. Or better yet, Hashiyat al-Khatib al-Shirbini on his Mughni.
Oh, wow.
Or Al-Masail al-Usuliyya in Nihayat al-Muhtaj of al-Ramli by al-Ramli. So, there's a lot of Nawadir, a lot of books. It's just that publicity and publishers, they all like to utilize publishing and printing for, I have what no one has ever been able to get a hold of. Realistically, it's nothing in comparison to what actually we do have. You know what I mean? So, inshallah, it'll come out soon, bi'idhnillah. Like, for example, I have Al-Iqna' written, the handwritten, Khatib al-Shirbini's Al-Iqna' fi Fiqh al-Shafi'i, written from the original source for the author himself, just in a better handwriting. So he was having a copy made of what he already had written, by an actual, transcriber, somebody with really good, decent handwriting. So, like, there's plenty of stuff, just that a lot of people don't know that it exists in form of manuscripts.
Yeah. What interested me about this particular risala coming out was something on ijtihad and taqlid from Imam Shafi'i himself. That's quite rare, given that most of this discussion tends to happen several centuries later.
I'm sure it was from Shafi'i himself, because you have the link?
Yeah, I sent it to you on Telegram. It's just a Telegram message.
Okay.
في بعض المسائل الفقهية وأحكام التقليد والتنقل بين المذاهب.
Yeah, none of this is for Imam Shafi'i, Sheikh Suwaid. No, Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Shafi'i. That's not Muhammad ibn Idris. None of it is for Imam Shafi'i himself. Imam Shafi'i himself didn't write anything on that.
Uh, yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that's because I'm pretty sure if it was for Imam Shafi'i, I would have. Yani, no, because the issue of taqleed and stuff like that is it's something that the Shafi'iyah have been digging into for a very long time.
Mm, yeah,
So if Imam Shafi'i had written something himself,
yeah, yeah.
But are you collecting any manuscripts or anything like that, Suwaid, or for the Hanafi madhab?
Not, not manuscripts, not yet. I plan to at some point, but at the moment the focus is on sort of تخصص في الإفتاء.
No.
So I've got about 2 years of that left, and then after that maybe. Especially now because there's a lot of work being done in publishing older books from the
No.
4th, 3rd to 5th century scholars, like some of the more higher tabaqat ulama.
MashaAllah.
So yeah, I think
So you're studying Hanafi fiqh and you're doing ifta at the moment.
yeah, we have
MashaAllah.
like it's almost like a formalized program. So they train you in and they give you like practical questions to answer, and then you have to answer them, and the supervisor basically sees how well you've done it. So it's very practical. So that's what I'm doing at the moment mostly.
MashaAllah. Sounds very, very similar to what our Sheikh Salam al-Khatib is doing in Shafi'i fiqh, because I'd say about like a few years ago, we had completed a complete, it was about almost 5 years of practical Shafi'i fiqh, answering practical modern day questions and issues and solving dilemmas and things of that nature with Sheikh Salam al-Khatib. We actually just started a second round for other students that wanted to join in as well. Walillah alhamdul minna. When we finished that, mashallah, it's very beneficial to dive that deep. So
Yeah.
but quick question, who is Sadr al-Sharia?
He's a 6th century. He's quite a senior scholar in the madhab. 6th century. It's a famous family. Sorry, Sheikh, it might get a little bit loud. My train was a bit delayed, so I'm still on my way to my desk. So let me know if it gets loud. I'll just mute myself. But he was a famous family in Ma Wara al-Nahr, and he authored some very important texts, specifically around the Hidayah, and it's a commentary of al-Muqtasar, and also some books in Usul al-Fiqh as well.
MashaAllah. Because I received recently a copy of Sharh Manhaj al-Tullab by Sheikh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari, the actual manuscript I received.
Oh, wow.
And in between the pages were pages with fiqh. I'm 100% sure it's not Shafi'i fiqh, but on the hashia, I kept on seeing quotes, and then underneath it says Sadr al-Sharia, Sadr al-Sharia. I'll take pictures of them, inshallah ta'ala, and send them your way.
Yeah. We have 2 Sadr al-Shari'as, but the other one is far earlier on. So that'd be, I think it'd be the Ubaidullah al-Mahbubi.
Yeah, all it says in the manuscript is Sadr al-Sharia. That's the only name I could make out of the manuscript. So I used that as a reference point to try and figure out what the manuscript is. I have no clue as of yet.
Yeah, it's probably, if it's the Hanif madhab, it'd be him.
Tamam. Well, we have Sheikh Abdul Aziz here, so we're going to go ahead and begin our class today. It's probably going to be a little short, inshallah ta'ala, just because of the time change. Inshallah, Sheikh Abdul Aziz, we're going to stay at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, inshallah ta'ala, for your notes. So let's go ahead and begin.
Inshallah. Thank you, Sheikh.
Allah yahfadkum. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. We are starting with باب الوضوء. Now, bab and fasl and kitab and sometimes even far'a and rarely mas'ala These are all used interchangeably. You can use it however you want. I mentioned fasl. But if they're mentioned together, usually you'll start with a kitab, which would be يعني, the book, and then bab, which would be a topic within the kitab itself, and then a fasl, which would be a branching off within the bab itself. And then you could add in there a mas'ala or a far'a. Now, usually mas'ala is used with additional details regarding the mas'ala mentioned in fasl or one of the masail mentioned in fasl. But when they mention far'a, usually, not always, but usually, it is a break off of one of the masail within the fasl. So, for example, if we were to say bab al-wudu, and then we say faslun fi sunan al-wudu, the sunan of wudu, and then we could say mas'alat al-basmala, and then you want to say speak about the basmala everywhere else other than wudu, you would say farra, because it's branching off of the issue of basmala. And again, there's no order to these, they're all used in a similar way. Al-wudu. Al-wudu in Arabic comes from al-wada'a, meaning to make something look nice, clean, pure, apparent, shiny even. The word wada'a is similar in Arabic to dakhama, and dakhama means to make something brighter, shinier, bigger, nicer, etc. Al-wudu is with a dhamma over the waw. If you put a fatha over the waw, al-wadu, it refers to the water being used. And the opposite was also said. Yani, some linguists said, no, it's the other way around. Wadu is the wudu itself. Wudu is the water itself. Okay, but that second opinion is weak amongst linguists. Tamam? Al-wudu in fiqh varies depending on the school that is defining it. At the end of the day, they're simply just trying to define what wudu is in the context of fiqh. Our Hanafi scholars, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, would say wudu is ghasl and masah on certain limbs. And you'll notice here that a lot of them won't say anything about a niyyah due to the debate that is present in the issue of the niyyah of wudu, and which goes back to, is wudu an independent act or is it connected to something else? And therefore the intention of the other act would encompass that which is wudu. The Malikiyya, they define it as a water-based purification act that has to do with certain limbs in the body or on the body done in a certain way. You'll see they don't mention the niyyah as well. The Shafi'iyya, they'll say it is a set of acts with an intention to certain limbs, and that, yeah, you'll see they'll vary a little bit in our books, but that's basically what they agree on. The Hanabila are not that far off from everyone else. They'll say it's the usage of clean water in the four limbs in a certain way that was mentioned in the Sharia. Now, each one of these definitions might be looked at as problematic within their own schools, right? If someone missed a detail, if someone defined it in a certain way or in another way, and so on. Okay, let's get to our hadith. Our first hadith is from Abi Hurayrah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who he said, or he's narrating from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, annahu qal, لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك مع كل وضوء. أخرجه مالك وأحمد والنسائي وصححه ابن خزيمة وذكره البخاري تعليقا. ذكره البخاري تعليقا. Now, before we get into, let's speak about the ta'liq. Imam al-Bukhari, normally, he only gives you a hadith, all right, that has a connected chain. Sometimes, however, the wording of a statement might be exactly the point that he's trying to get across to you. However, due to Bukhari maybe not actually being a narrator of that hadith, meaning he heard it from maybe someone else saying it, someone else mentioning it, or just simply does not meet the criteria that he has put forth in his book. But the wording is the message that he's trying to bring to you, right? For you to understand. So what he'll do is that he'll put it in the title of the segment or the chapter that he is about to narrate a hadith in. And they're called mu'allaqat. Why? What is the mu'allaq? It is basically the elimination of the chain between the narrator and the speaker. Okay? Now, he's going to keep the speaker present, all right, because that's still a point of authority, even though it does not meet his criteria, or he doesn't actually have the chain, or there might be ikhtilaf on accepting it or not. Okay, so he simply wants you to get the message that he wants you to get in the following narrations, also in the title. And remember, Imam al-Bukhari, he did something different than most scholars. He gave you the assessment in short in the title of each chapter. Okay, that's what a mu'allaq is. But don't worry, it does not mean that these mu'allaqat are weak. There's around 900 of them. Okay, some are marfu', some are mawquf. Okay, and some even argued that certain titles are actually mu'allaqat as well. And Imam Ibn Hajar, he wrote a book called Taghliq al-Ta'liq, which is basically bringing out the chains for these statements. And he's not the only one. Many scholars have also done this same thing. All right. So they are authentic. Okay. Now, us saying authentic, and this is also something that needs to be understood. Even when we say a hadith is in Bukhari, it does not necessitate that alayhi al-amal, right? And we've spoken on this topic before, where you could have a sound chain, but it does not mean that it's being implemented for one reason or the other. Nasikh mansukh, ta'arud al-alfaz, etc. The reasons are really endless. That's not what we're discussing right now. So here he starts Bab al-Wudu with siwak. Why does he begin Bab al-Wudu with siwak? First of all, there's a khilaf between the fuqaha. Where does the siwak go in wudu? Some scholars say that the siwak goes at the beginning of wudu, yani before you actually do anything. While others say no, siwak actually comes in or is to be used right after you wash your hands. So you wash your hands, then you use the siwak. Okay, now you might say, well, there's not that much of a difference here. How would this affect us? Well, it'll affect us greatly, as a matter of fact, and that's because if you say that it's after you wash the hands and it's not before you wash the hands, then technically you are making this part of the wudu, meaning when we are speaking about wudu, suwak is part of it, meaning part of the af'al. Now, aside from wudu, siwak has great understanding and usage. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "السواك مطهرة للفم, مرضاة للرب." And this is also from the mu'allaqat of Bukhari. Siwak is normally sunnah. As a matter of fact, this is what the ijma' of the ulama of the ummah is. Tamam? Now, before we get into the wudu aspect and siwak, I want you to focus on an important element here. And that is him saying, لولا أن أشق على أمتي. Here we have, and this happens rarely in the Sharia, يعني in comparison to all of Ahkam al-Sharia, this is a rare situation where we have the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually pointing out to us that if he says it to us, then it becomes wajib. So this is something that we would see again in usul al-fiqh, that the command of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam might be looked at as wajib. And this comes up in a mas'ala of al-amr lil-wujub. Okay. Now, what does he mean in the context before us? The Prophet ﷺ is saying that I have not ordered you to use the siwak. I have not ordered you to do so. Because if I did, then it would be wajib upon you to use. Imam Shafi'i says, if it was wajib, he would have ordered them regardless if it was too hard for them or not. Of course, this argument brings up, or this presentation that way brings up a large debate and discussion amongst As-Sad al-Asha'ira and As-Sad al-Maturidiyya in the issue of at-taklif bima la yutaq. I'm not going to get into that now. It's way too late for that. But from these types of ahadith comes those discussions. Okay. طيب. Is all of the ulama in agreement that it's sunnah? No. There are some, but they do not impact the ijma'. And this is where you find people like Imam al-Nawawi will use terms like the ijma' of the ulama that are recognized. Now, he's not saying that the other ulama are not recognized per se, but he kind of is. And those are ulama that did not follow a certain manhajiyya, a certain system when they are discussing matters of fiqh. And there's many, right? Whether it's Sufyan al-Thawri, whether it's Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, whether it's Ishaq ibn Rahawi. Okay, now these are major scholars, don't get me wrong. But sometimes when they discuss issues of fiqh, they're not really that precise. Some of them are, but a lot of times, like for example, you see attributed to Sufyan al-Thawri, while it's questionable, this attributing this to him, but he says, like for example, you will not enter paradise or you will not be safe and be part of Ahl Sunnah as long as you say the Basmala out loud when you're doing the Fatiha out loud. I mean, come on, who says that? What is this? Okay, now I understand he's a great scholar, but he did not have an actual structured system. We're not speaking about Abu Hanifa. We're not speaking about Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf. We're not speaking about Muhammad ibn Hassan or Malik or Ibn Abd al-Hakam or Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i or Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Okay, we're not speaking about these people that actually had, whether we agree with it or not, an actual structured understanding of the Sharia. Okay. Now, Ishaq ibn Rahway, for example, he said, as-siwak is wajib. Is wajib. But why did he say that it's wajib? He said, when the Prophet ﷺ said, لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك عند كل وضوء, he said, no. That was for the salah, not for the wudu. His understanding was this was pertaining to salah, not wudu. Now there's another group of scholars that said siwak is makruh, but there's never been suffice information to support that ever existed. They never even mentioned who actually said this, so I don't know where the word originally came up. Now, siwak is without a doubt sunnah ala kulli hal, sunnah ala kulli hal, except for in some madhab, like the Shafi'i madhab, we say after zawal for a person who is fasting. Why? Well, because the odor that comes from the one fasting is a beloved odor. It's a respected odor before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, the logic of the Shafi'iyya is, why remove it? Okay, there's a sahih narration that supports that this khuluf, the odor in the mouth, right, of the one fasting, is is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why remove it? So they said it's makruh. And this is the opinion of the Shafi'iyya. And before them, Ata said this as well, and others. Some of the Hanabila agreed with this as well. Okay. Our Hanafi scholars and Maliki scholars and the rest of the Hanabila, radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, they said, no, there's no amr, there's no command with this or for this. Tamam. Some of the Shafi'iyya, even some of the leading scholars of the Shafi'iyya, they said this this logic, this reasoning of the mu'tamad, of the standardized opinion in the Shafi'i school, does not make sense. The adilla are clear that this is still sunnah. Tamam, that is still sunnah. However, the mu'tamad of our school and the majority of the Shafi'i still agree to the fact that it would be makruh. So that is the mu'tamad amongst the Shafi'iyya. Tamam. لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك عند كل وضوء. Now, all the four schools agree to the fact that siwak is sunnah when you're making wudu. But is it part of wudu or is it separate from wudu itself? The Sada al-Ahnaf and the Malikiyya and some of the Shafi'iyya is that it is a sunnah from the sunan of wudu. When I say some of the Shafi'iyya, I'm talking about even between Ibn Hajar and the Ramli from the Muta'akhirin. Ibn Hajar says it's part of wudu, and Ibn Salih said the same. What does this mean? If you're Shafi'i, this means after you made your intention for sunan al-wudu, you washed your hands and you went on to do siwak, you don't have to have an additional intention. Tamam, that's what the Shafi'iyya said. Okay, or Ibn Hajar says. The other opinion, and that's the opinion of the Hanabila, and it's the opinion of Imam al-Ramli from the Mutaakhirin of the Shafi'iyya, is that it is a sunnah outside of wudu. Al-Imam al-Ghazali upheld that opinion as well. Okay. So they're saying basically before you say the basmala and begin, you actually have used the siwak. Tamam. Now, in the Shafi'i school, Imam al-Ramli would say, you're going to have to intend an intention for that act because the intention of sunan al-wudu would not include it since it came before it. Allahu a'lam. Tamam. Now, if we were to go on about siwak, we would spend hours upon hours. Why? Because siwak and oral hygiene is highly recommended. It's highly sunnah mu'akkada in Islam. And it's not limited to arak, the branch of the bush of arak. No, it's not limited to that. That was just the main tool at a time being. Kalam Jameel. And we're going to cover this. So essentially, that was the original toothbrush. I even saw this in the dentistry museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They had a siwak, the wooden siwak, arak, in a glass box, the first toothbrush known to mankind. Kalam Jameel, mashallah, beautiful. All right, but is it limited to that? No. For the most part, in the first schools, yes, they do agree that the best is arak because that's what was used. That's what the Prophet ﷺ used and he told others to use. Tamam. Overall, everyone agrees. Tamam. طيب. The majority of everyone, they say after that, any stem or toothbrush, whether it smells good or not, that's irrelevant as long as it does the job. However, in presenting what does the job, Imam al-Nawawi and Imam al-Rafi'i in the Shafi'i school were they generalized. The Malikiyya, the rest of the Shafi'iyya, the Hanabila, and a minority of the Ahnaf, okay, minority, not all. They said after the arak is the nakhl, okay, is the nakhl, palm tree, stem or piece that you can cut off. After that is the zaytun, Jameel. And again, the majority of the fuqaha will have spoken on these. After that is any stem, stick that would work. That's decent. All right. And you'll see some of them, they'll say, well, if things are too soft and not firm, then those are not going to be good because they're not going to really help cleanse off the teeth and the gums. Tamam. Overall, I have not seen that much when it comes to the stem smelling good. Yes, they'll say it, just but very briefly. Tamam. I think it was the Hanabila, if I'm not mistaken, who were a little bit more vocal. If you can go back and read in Al-Insaf and Al-Mughni, and they said it shouldn't have something that has a strong scent to it. And the examples that they'll usually give us things like a basil stem. Of course, we're talking about a mature basil stem, rihan. Some of them will even mention saying you shouldn't use rumman and things like that. But those things are, to be honest, they're a lot harsh, are very harsh. And I know for certain the Shafi'iyya pointed out that rihan should not be used. Some of them even said it's makruh. So, even the other schools, when they're mentioning that you can use something that has a decent odor, they're not saying things that might be too rough on the mouth, flavor, and things like that, because you don't want to make people despise or not want to use it. Things that are makruh would be any type of stem that would harm you. Now, with modern toothbrushes, one might argue that everything that the fuqaha were looking for is indeed present. وعليه فلا إشكال بعد ذلك والله أعلم. And that's really suffice for that. Again, we could go on all day with the issues of suwak, but yani it would not really come to an end. So let's stop there, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and let's move on to our next hadith, especially that we have limited time today. We'll go over some things, and then we're going to complete in it, inshallah ta'ala, next time, because the next all of the ahadith realistically they all go into one another. So today, let's at least read this and get some context in, and then inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala in our next class, what we'll do is I'll tackle the majority of ahadith al-wudu. He says عن حمران مولى عثمان ibn Affan, and Humran has a dhamma over the ha. Usually when they're speaking about the mawali of Umar and Uthman, definitely note that these mawali, okay, they might be slaves, but they're also workers that both Umar and Uthman entrusted. Now, I haven't seen this as a qa'idah in the books of hadith, but one might develop one, yani, from research, that when you observe the mawali that are narrating from Uthman and Ali, that belong to, meaning they're slaves of, or they have some sort of allegiance with the tribes of Umar or Uthman, note that these people are very, very important. These individuals usually hold places of power in government positions that they are placed in during the lifetimes of these Sahaba. And you can see this the more that you dig in. Now, Humran, he was the personal servant, squire, if you may, of Uthman ibn Affan bin Nurayn radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Okay. Now, originally, from what we know from Humran's biography, is that he was freed very early on. Okay. But he stayed as a helper, almost a secretary, if you may, personal assistant of Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, which makes the mawali of both Umar and Uthman, and to a certain extent Ibn Umar and Ibn Abbas as well, but I'm focusing right now only on Umar and Uthman, very, very important narrators. A lot of times we don't know their full names. I take, for example, Abd al-Dar. This was a mawla for Umar. What was his job? You'll see people today come and say, majhul la na'rifu. Majhul la na'rifu. Yet he was what we could call the financial minister of Umar. Yet we're just going to dismiss him because we don't know his full name. A foreigner that was a slave that eventually was freed by Umar. Yet we're just going to toss him off to the side, even though he's basically the secretary of coins. There's a level of understanding here that this individual is high status. You don't need to know their full name if you know everything else in their biography. Okay, name alone does not necessitate anything. As a matter of fact, you could know a narrator's full name, but it actually means nothing. Why? Because you do not know that person's status. But being around the time of Umar and running the finance department, okay, that's not an easy position to be in, okay? If Umar was alive and Wall Street was working for him, they'd be beheaded, okay? So that speaks volumes alone. So Humran Mawla Uthman radiyallahu anhu, he mentions that Uthman da'a biwadu. Now, normally, because it's the correct understanding, we would have a fatha over the well, okay? Wadu, meaning water. All right, so Uthman now is about to do what? To perform wudu. Okay, mumtaz. فغسل كفيه ثلاث مرات. He washed his hands. كفيه. Kaf here is not yad. Okay, kaf here means palm. Then why is he using palm? And we know that he's speaking about yad to tell you It's up and or up to and possibly with his wrist, not his dhira, not his, what is dhira also known as? Sa'id. No, he's only washing his hand, fingers up to and with possibly his wrist. And I'm saying possibly because, as we'll come to see, there's arguments there. ثم تمضمض واستنشق واستنثر. There's something missing here. Okay, I want you to pay attention. There's something missing here. Okay, he washed his hand, then he put water in his mouth. We know this one, right? واستنشق, and then he put water in his nose. Okay, we know this one too. واستنثر. Okay, so he put water in his mouth, then he put water in his nose, then he put water, took water out of his nose. Okay, what about the water in his mouth? Did he release that or did he swallow it? Now you might see here some people explain this and saying, oh, mother, we know this. He put water in his mouth and then he spit it out. Well, hold on. It doesn't say that he spit it out, did it? Does it? And as we'll come to see in the following classes about wudu, there's a possibility, just looking at this text as is, that he drank it. Okay. Now, the only way you could argue that he spit it out from this narration alone, remember, we're only looking at this narration. This is something a lot of students of knowledge have a problem with. They see the word madmada, oh yeah, madmada, the madmada that we do. No, ya habibi. That's the madmada that you do. This text does not state what you do. You cannot come and say madmada means he put water in and then he released it. No, you just added in something on your end when we're looking only at this narration. Come on, we're trying to become like the fuqaha one day, inshallah ta'ala. This is how the fuqaha think. Here, he did not release the water. He possibly swallowed it. Okay, now you might say, well, what about istanthir? Couldn't istanthir mean released it from both? No, because istanthir is limited to the nose because it's the act of blowing your nose. Okay, so he put water in his mouth. We don't know what he did with it afterwards. He drew water up into his nose, all right, and then he released it. Okay, then, well, wait a minute. There's no 3 times here, is there? Nope, he didn't mention that. Okay, let's continue on. ثم غسل وجهه 3 مرات. Then he washed his face 3 times. I was in a little debate today with some Salafis, right? And he automatically, during the debate, took wajh as face. Okay, so I told him, can you open up a dictionary, please? He said, no, we're going to stick to the context. I said, no, open up a dictionary. Tell me what wajh means in the dictionary. And I always do this. I say, okay, you say the word ulu. Okay, perfect. Mumtaz. Could you open up a dictionary and show me what it means? They say, no, I want to stick to the context. No, don't stick to the context. I don't care about the context. I'm not even speaking about that right now. Open up the dictionary and tell me what the word ulu means. Tell me what the word wajh means. What does the word wajh actually mean? Wajh in Arabic means ma yastaqbalu minhu. Okay, you might not understand that. That's okay. Let me rephrase that. In another dictionary, it says ما يرى عند الاستقبال. Okay, so what body part is wajh? Technically, whichever one is the observer is observing. Okay, however, between humans and animals, we have an understanding, it's been established for millennia, that when I say wajh, I'm speaking about the part of your face that's facing me. Why do I say the part of the face that's facing? Why not face? Well, you see, face does not include ears. Is ears part of the face? Well, that's a debate. And this is why you'll see some of the fuqaha will wipe their ears while they wash their face. Okay, but some said, no, ears are not part of the face. They're part of the head. Then you'll see why some scholars might wipe the ears when they wipe their head. Why? Because it is the argument goes back to defining what the wajh is. Today, you see people that say, oh, yeah, wash your face. Yeah, I don't need to explain that. Let me move on. No, ya habibi, wait, come back. You're moving too fast. You now need to define, and we're going to need, and this is what we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala, in our coming classes, understand what defines face. What is the face that we have agreed for humans and animals? Why am I saying only humans and animals? Because the mountain has a face. It's the face that you're facing at the time you're calling it a face. The tree has a face. Of course, in English, we don't call it face, right? It's called the side that I'm looking at. But in Arabic, it's called wajh. Yes, a tree has a wajh. Now you might say, which side is the wajh on? The side that you're looking at. When are you standing in front of? When you said wajhu shagar, wajhu shari', wajhu kitab. Yeah, it all depends on where you're standing, what you're looking at, and what you're talking about at that time. Okay, all right. He washed the face 3 times. Okay. ثم غسل يده اليمنى إلى المرفق 3 مرات. إلى المرفق, to the elbow. He's not saying with the elbow, is he? No. He's saying إلى المرفق. So do I wash the whole elbow, or do I stop at the elbow, or do I wash it and go above it slightly? As we'll see, there's going to be arguments and debates there as well. He says, ثم اليسرى مثل ذلك. Okay, that's a given. ثم مسح برأسه. Then he wiped his head. How? Nothing. He doesn't tell you a word how. He doesn't say how many times. He just simply says, ثم مسح برأسه. How many times? Now, some people come and say, see, didn't we say the madhab, the correct understanding is wiping the head once? Front to back? You'll hear people say that, right? Front to back. And come back again, right? See? Only one time. Ya Habibi, he doesn't even say front to back. He doesn't even define what part of the head was wiped. He just, and he wiped his head. How many times? Does not say. But don't forget, it also said madmada and istinshaq. It did not state the quantity. Okay, well, if someone's relying on this narration to say the wiping of the head only happened once, well, they just negated themselves with the madmada and istinshaq. Okay, let's continue. ثم غسل رجله اليمنى إلى الكعبين. Same issue as the elbow, to the ankle. Doesn't say and the ankle. Remember, this is not Quran. I can't come and say ila means ma'a. You know, you'll hear people that'll come and say fi, right, means ala. Okay, sure, in some scenarios it might be. It's not indefinite. You can't just call out and say, well, this fi means ala here because I wanted to. No, you're going to have to prove that this fi means ala here. Not that fi can at sometimes mean ala. Same thing here. You can't just come and say, ila means ma'a. Based on what? Based on what? From this narration? No. So can you prove that this exact one means that? You're going to have external evidence that's speaking about this incident. Or at least show me where Uthman actually did that. He says, ثم اليسرى مثل ذلك. And the left foot, the same as that. ثم قال, then he said, I saw the Messenger of Allah ﷺ made wudu exactly like I just made wudu. متفق عليه. So it's متفق عليه, and technically, I have a lot of issues. We have plenty of issues here. Plenty. Which we'll see in our coming classes, inshallah ta'ala. So we're going to stop here, bi'idhnillah. Next week, we're going to pick up from here. We're going to read up through all of our ahadith, and then we're going to go over the fiqh of each and the wudu according to the 4 schools in all the details, inshallah ta'ala. Also, if you're interested, inshallah, possibly in a month, maybe 2, possibly during Ramadan, I'm still trying to plan it out. I have a book that I wrote, and it has the detailed wudu according to the Shafi'iyya with, for the most part, a lot of naql. There are differences, there are debates, everything that was mentioned within the Shafi'i school. It's going to be open for everyone, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to attend. So if you want to, you can do that. And that would be, that class is going to be excessively painful, detailed, probably a little bit boring for some people, but inshallah ta'ala, it's going to be the most in-depth study of wudu within one school that has been done. Inshallah ta'ala. Nas'al Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tawfiq was-sadad. So we'll stop here. I know it's short today. We're going to be keeping our class at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, according to the new timing, when the time just changed, yani on Sunday, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله تعالى لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.